think we're doing a buying guide. I mean, what a difference a year makes. In my previous gaming handheld buying guide, I could really only recommend 2 of these. It would be the Ally X and the Steam Deck OLED. The rest were all a bit, well, crap. But now we have so many options with better performance, battery life, more interesting designs, which is great, more options to choose from, but now it's even more complicated. And which one's the right one, and why have they got more expensive? Well, sit back, grab your popcorn or confectionery of choice, and I will tell you which one you should buy. I will also link all of these in the description below. Just to clarify though, I'm talking about gaming PC handhelds, so not your Switch 2s or your Backbone Pro for your phone or your PS Portal, proper gaming PC handhelds. From the Steam Deck to the Lenovo Legion Go S to the ROG Xbox Ally and its bigger brother, well not technically bigger, higher end brother, the Ally X, Lenovo Legion Go 2 of course, and even the MSI Claw A8. And just like the children I don't have, I like all of them. Well, mostly, but for different reasons. But as always, you pays more, you gets more. Faster performance, more storage, longer battery life, and better screens. But we'll talk about performance and battery life figures a little bit later in the video. But before any of that, the first question you need to ask yourself is, do you want to have a handheld with SteamOS or with Windows? With SteamOS running on the 2 Steam Decks, obviously, and also the Lenovo Legion Go S. Well, one variant of it. Everything else runs Windows. Now, SteamOS is great because it's the most easy pick up and play kind of experience. It's easy to use, it boots quickly, and it's a great option if you mostly play, well, Steam games and just don't want to deal with Windows, which is a bit of a system hog and really finicky to use on a 7 or 8 inch screen. But the downside is you don't get support for other game stores or Game Pass, although there are workarounds if you're happy to tinker in Linux. But also, if a game isn't listed as Steam Deck verified or compatible, then it just won't work on any SteamOS device. Although you can stream from Steam if you have another gaming PC. SteamOS does also have a Linux-based desktop mode, which isn't compatible with Windows apps, but it does have tons of great emulators, and you can use this to play old console games. Windows 11, on the other hand, is, well, Windows on a handheld, and yes, it gives you more options, it's more versatile, you've got access to all the game stores, and you can also just use it like a regular PC, connect a mouse and keyboard, put it, as a desktop dock. It's a proper, full, fat PC, but that also comes with the downsides, like Windows has more processes running in the background, which can impact your performance, your frame rate a little bit. It's also just really finicky and kind of horrible to use as a touchscreen interface on a screen this small. And what's funny with these new ROG Xbox Allies is that they kind of try to hide the Windows desktop behind the scenes. It now launches into this full screen Xbox experience mode, which really is just the PC app but full screen, and you can still access the full desktop if you need to, but they're just trying to hide away some of this clunk. Clunk. It's a weird word, isn't it? Clunk. I've said it too many times now. Clunk. It sounds weird. Let's move on. So question 2, how much do you actually need to spend? And this does tie in a little bit because generally the Windows devices are more expensive than those running SteamOS, the Steam Deck and these Legion Go S's. So let's go through the pros and cons of each of these, starting with the most affordable ones, the Steam Decks. You've got the LCD and the OLED. While the OLED refresh is an improvement, they're both getting on a little bit now. Performance can't match the newer, pricier models. The 800p resolution has, well, half the pixels of everything else here. But then picking it up, pressing the on button, and it just works. SteamOS makes everything so easy to pick up and play. Setup is a breeze, and while performance isn't flagship level, it is consistent, particularly on the OLED. It's comfortable, you get 2 touch pads, which most other handhelds don't except the Legion. They've also made it easy to see if games are deck optimized or not, plus some have special deck graphics presets that run best. It's basically the perfect starter PC handheld. And ideally you already have a healthy library of PC games on Steam, but you can also install other game stores via third-party apps like non-Steam launchers when you're in the Linux mode. I think my biggest frustration with the Steam Deck though is just a lot of games don't run on this. If they're not verified or compatible, or if they require like a third-party anti-cheat software. So games like Battlefield 6, even though they wouldn't run particularly well on this hardware, they simply won't work. The Steam Deck is also only 15 watts, and that's the same plugged in or on battery, so while frame rates will be consistent, you don't get the high power modes like on some of the others. And also the screen doesn't support VRR when in handheld mode. all day long, I would recommend paying a little bit more and getting the OLED. It's a nice refinement, and you're getting a bigger, brighter, 90 Hz HDR OLED screen, more consistent performance, 50% longer battery life, better Wi-Fi speakers, thumbsticks, and it's lighter. It's a big upgrade over the LCD. Then we have the new ROG Xbox Ally, and for similar money to the Steam Deck OLED, around £500, $600-ish, you're getting a cut down, cut price version compared to its, well, fancier flagship brother, the Ally X. The problem is, it's really cut down, particularly in terms of performance. To be clear though, despite the branding and the fact that it's written on it and it has an Xbox logo here, this is not an Xbox handheld. It's an ROG Ally 2, essentially. The main difference really is that you launch straight into this full-screen Xbox app, and it's very good. You have access to all your game launchers, Game Pass, Xbox Cloud Gaming and settings. So because you're not launching straight into the full-fat desktop, Windows is a little bit less of a system hog. We also get the exact same, very comfy, stretched out Xbox controller design of its pricier sibling, the Ally X, even the same 7-inch 1080p 120Hz 500-nit VRR display. In fact, every single ROG Ally has had the exact same screen. The Ally X, the original one, the Xbox Ally, the Xbox Ally X, all exactly the same screen. There's been no improvement at all. I mean, it's not the end of the world. They're still very nice screens, but next to a 144Hz OLED like we have on this guy, I feel like ASUS maybe could have done a little bit more there. The cheaper Ally also has half the storage of the X. This is 512, that's a terabyte, although we do have a micro SD card slot to expand the storage, and you can open it up and actually switch out the M2 SSD for a larger size, but obviously you have to pay for that and do that yourself. The cheaper Xbox Ally also gets less RAM, 16 gigs rather than 24, and it's slower RAM. The battery is smaller at 60 watts rather than 80. There's no haptic impulse triggers, which is disappointing. The big problem though is that while this has the full-fat Ryzen Z2 Extreme chip, the new flagship top-end processor, this comes with the Ryzen Z2A. And I'm just going to say A stands for average. The Z2A is the slowest in the Z2 lineup, even below the Go, with half the CPU and GPU cores of the Z2 Extreme and even last year's Z1 Extreme, plus the GPU cores are slower and the turbo mode tops out at just 20 watts, compared to 35 on the Ally X when plugged in. Honestly, this is closer to Steam Deck performance. And battery life in my Cyberpunk test was about 20 minutes shorter than the Ally X at 1 hour 51. It can still play basically any PC game, you just have to adjust the settings and the resolution a little bit, manage expectations. Just my opinion, but if you do want one of these guys with the comfortable controllers and the Xbox integration, you just want an Ally 2 basically, save up a little bit longer, wait for a deal or a discount, and get the full proper Ally X. This is significantly better. Or, if you can find one, maybe go for last year's ROG Ally X. It's the same display and it's the Z1 Extreme chip, and you can probably find it on quite a good deal now because it's a little bit over a year old. This is a much better buy than this. So then what about these guys? The Lenovo Legion Go S. And actually there's two of them, one with Windows 11 and this one that uses SteamOS. Think of it like a supercharged Steam Deck, which if we're being honest is really all any of us want. Both models have Z2 Go and Z1 Extreme SKUs. The Z2 Go is slower but more efficient and more affordable, starting at about £500 or $650 for a SteamOS one. Now here I actually have two Z1E SteamOS Go S's, and these are around £700 or $900, which is quite a lot of money. But as we'll see later, the Z1 Extreme isn't that far behind the Z2 Extreme at the same power limit. The funny thing is, I'm surrounded by much more expensive, better quote-unquote handhelds, but picking this up, it just feels like what a gaming handheld should feel like. With great build quality and ergonomics, we have adjustable triggers and even a little touchpad right there. It does feel like a cheaper version of the Go 2 in terms of materials. The touchpad on here is much bigger. We have the kickstand at the back, detachable controllers, the much bigger screen. So yeah, Legion Go 2, as we'll come to, is higher end. But I think for most people, and maybe myself included, even though it's not quite as powerful, this may end up being one of my favorites. And I love this screen. It's 8 inches, which I think is the sweet spot size, Full HD+, 120Hz, IPS, not OLED. And bear in mind, the SteamOS version of the Legion Go S's are a little bit faster in games and have slightly better battery life. And that better battery is useful because we do have a fairly small 55.5 watt-hour cell in here, which is more than a Steam Deck, but significantly less than the 70 to 80 watt-hours we get on most other high-end models. Battery life was the second shortest on test, and the fans do also get quite loud under heavy load. So it is not perfect, but I think if you are going to buy one of these, for my money, the Z2 Go SteamOS version is the pick of the bunch. It is a fair bit less powerful than the Z1 Extreme or Z2 Extreme, but it's significantly cheaper and I think good enough, and actually quite a bit faster than the Z2A that you get in here. So then moving up to the ROG Xbox Ally X, this is probably the most hyped new handheld of the year, obviously with that Xbox marketing behind it. But what does the extra £300 or $400 get you over the cheaper Ally? Well, essentially just a lot more performance. We have the Z2 Extreme chip, which has, as I say, double the CPU, double the GPU cores, 24 gigs of faster RAM, a terabyte of storage, a bigger 80 watt-hour battery. It's black rather than white, which obviously is faster. This USB Type-C port is USB 4, which obviously is faster if you want to output to higher-end monitors, or even potentially plug in an external graphics card. ASUS obviously make their XG mobile docks. We have the haptic impulse triggers, which make it feel a bit more, well, visceral in your hand. But yeah, most importantly, it's the chip, the Ryzen AI Z2 Extreme. And in my tests, it's between 80 and 100% faster than the cheaper Ally. But it's not just about performance. For me, this and also its cheaper brother are probably the most comfortable handhelds you can get, and that's all down to these chunkier controllers. It really is like they've just taken an Xbox controller and elongated it. It does make it a little bit thicker than some of the rivals, but yeah, it is by far the most comfortable, at least for me. And you can play proper AAA games at medium to high settings at 1080p, even in handheld mode. The leap over the cheaper Xbox Ally is huge. As for battery life, I got 2 hours and 10 in Cyberpunk using turbo mode. Pretty good, although a good half an hour short of the battery life champ, the MSI Claw A8. Although mark that with an asterisk, more on that in a second. But as is the case for all of these, if you're not playing AAA, really demanding games, simpler stuff, you'll get a good 5 hours out of this. And again, you can expand the storage via the microSD, or you can open it up and change out the internal SSD. Although, quick sidebar, if you are rocking one of the previous Ally X's, I don't think it's worth upgrading. Yes, it's a little bit faster, more comfortable to hold, but this is still an exceptional device. However, I would say if you're rocking an original Ally, then yes, it's definitely worth upgrading, primarily for the battery life. After the Steam Deck, this was like the first proper gaming handheld we had, and certainly the first one that was running Windows. The problem with it was the battery life, 40 watt hours. You got like 45 minutes of AAA gaming from this. Awful. So the step up to the Ally X was a big deal because they doubled the battery and then kept the same battery going into the new guy. Although actually this does last a little bit longer than the old Ally X. But before you click off the video and think, I'm gonna go and buy an ROG Xbox Ally, well, hold up. Is the MSI Claw, for an extra £50 or so, actually a better device than the ROG? This is the MSI Claw A8, and it follows on from the Intel-based Claw 8 AI Plus we had earlier in 2025, but this new one uses the latest Z2 Extreme chip, just like the ROG Ally X, same 24 gigs of RAM, same terabyte of storage, and an equally big 80 watt-hour battery. So specs-wise, very similar to this, but I do prefer the screen on here. I love this Full HD, 120Hz, VRR. Now I have some good news and some bad news about this MSI Claw A8. Firstly, the performance wasn't quite up to the same standard as the Lenovo and the ROG with the same Z2 Extreme chips. Using the default AI engine preset, in a couple of games I was getting around 10 frames per second less than its rivals. But the flip side of that slightly lower performance, because I think it's running at a lower wattage in that AI engine mode, we get a longer battery life. In my Cyberpunk test, the Claw lasted 27% longer and almost 30% longer than the Steam Deck OLED, while also achieving double the frame rate. That's not bad at all. But one thing I can't get over with the MSI Claw, as impressive as this is the design. It just feels so cheap and plasticky. This is a very expensive bit of kit. It's like in the same price bracket as these top-end flagship handhelds, and yet it feels like a $200 or $300 just... It's really disappointing. It might not bother you, but it does make me hesitate about recommending this simply because it just feels so cheap. Alternatively, there's the Intel-based Claw 8 AI Plus. It's similar money, but with a slightly different design, and importantly, it has an Intel Core Ultra 258V chip, along with 32 gigs of RAM and Wi-Fi 7, making it a better pure Windows machine for more demanding tasks, while the Claw A8 with Z2 Extreme is probably a slightly better gaming option as it's more efficient, has better battery life, and runs cooler. Although I don't have the Intel version on test. But if you have deeper pockets, both figuratively because you need more money to pay for it because it's more expensive, but also literally because it's the biggest handheld on the market by some margin, then maybe consider the Legion Go 2. This has all the bells and whistles. Z2 Extreme, massive 8.8-inch, 144Hz, Full HD Plus VRR, OLED display, detachable controllers with a kickstand. Even the materials feel a lot more premium. But as impressive as this genuinely is, it has two Achilles heels, as we all do, to be fair. The sheer size and weight of this thing, and also the price. Starting at £900 or $1,100 for the cheapest Z2 16GB 512 model, but really you'd want this one, the higher end with the Z2 Extreme, 32 gigs of RAM, a terabyte of storage, for £1,100 or $1,350. For context, the original Legion Go was $700. This has almost doubled in price. So unless you need the extra RAM or want the best, biggest screen or can't live without detachable controllers for some reason, it's a bit overkill. It's too expensive, it's too heavy, and the Xbox Ally X will give you similar performance, similar battery, in a much more comfortable, portable form factor. I also have to own up to a mistake because in my review of the Xbox Ally X, I actually did some comparisons with this guy, and I found that I was getting like 10 to 15% lower performance for some reason, despite the fact that this had more memory, the same Z2 Extreme chip. I did all the driver updates, I ran the test several times, different power modes, RSR and all that stuff, couldn't work it out. Turns out, as actually some of you pointed out in the comments, that the VRAM had been limited to 2 GB by default. So I had to go into the BIOS and then change the allocation of the VRAM up to like 8 GB, which then did make a sort of 10 to 15% difference in performance. But I shouldn't have to be doing that when I'm spending $1,350 on a premium handheld experience. It's a very strange but solvable issue. So the Legion Go 2 is clearly a handheld for the enthusiasts, people who want to tinker and have the most flexibility and just want the biggest, baddest experience. So those are the main options if you want a new gaming handheld, but let's talk about performance. And I ran a few tests at 1080p, or the 800p on the Steam Deck, using high settings at their highest performance presets, on and off battery. And in Cyberpunk, everything with the Z2 Extreme was way out in front. But here we can see just how much slower that Z2A chip is in the cheaper ROG Xbox Ally, and also the Steam Deck, while consistent, is the slowest overall, as you would expect. Although the good thing about the Steam Deck is you're getting basically the same performance on or off battery. In Red Dead 2, it was a similar story, although I probably would drop the graphics a smidge, maybe down to medium to get a more playable frame rate. But again, the Z2 Extremes are clearly the most capable. In Battlefield 6, the Z1E models were all pretty strong, but there's just no catching the Xbox Ally X and Legion Go 2. Although they did suffer a bigger drop-off when switching to handheld mode. And sadly, being unsupported by SteamOS means it just didn't run on the Steam Deck or the Steam-powered Legion Go S. Which was also the case with F125, where all the Z2E models were pretty consistent, but the others were oddly slow at times. This is kind of where handhelds do still feel a little bit new, like driver updates, game support. It's all improving over time, but it's still not a seamless experience. But I think my takeaway is while the Z2 Extreme is the most impressive, if you can find a decent used model with a Z1 Extreme chip and save a bit of money, for example the older ROG Xbox Ally X, that's probably going to be your best bang for buck. As for battery life, well, you really have to manage expectations with these things, but clear winner, MSI Claw A8. I think mostly because it's running a little bit slower, lower wattage compared to some of the rivals, but it has a equally big 80 watt-hour battery. The Legion Go 2 and the ROG Xbox Ally X didn't last as long, although they did average a higher frame rate. So considering frames per watt, they probably equal out about the same. The Steam Deck OLED did really well, but at half the resolution and also half the frame rate of some of the others. But unfortunately, the Legion Go S was the most underwhelming. So that is a lot of me waffling. Shall I just get to the point? Which one should you buy? Well, it's going to vary for everyone. Different budgets, different needs. I would buy the ROG Xbox Ally X. But for $1,000 US, it's a lot of money. So I think for a lot of people, a better budget option would either be the Steam Deck OLED, which is this one, or the Legion Go S with the Z2A and SteamOS as well. Both have their flaws, but at that price point, still worth considering. Thank you so much for watching, guys. That was a lot to take in. If you've got any other questions, drop a comment below. Links in the description. You can check out my full review of the ROG and the Lenovo right here. And I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Jab. Thanks for watching.